The stagecoach rattled into Pine Ridge just as the sun began its slow descent behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. Dust swirled around the wheels as the driver yanked hard on the reins, bringing the tired horses to a halt outside the town's only hotel. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the door swung open and a woman stepped down. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. She was dressed entirely in navy blue, a heavy veil cascading from the brim of her hat to well below her shoulders, obscuring every inch of her face. Her gloved hands clutched a small leather valise, knuckles white with tension. The few townsfolk lingering on the boardwalk fell silent, their curious stares following her as she made her way toward the White Steeple Church at the far end of the street. Inside the church, Trenton studied his reflection in a small, cracked mirror. His usually unruly dark hair had been slicked back with pomade, his weathered face freshly shaved. The stiff collar of his only good shirt dug into his neck, a reminder of why he avoided town gatherings whenever possible. He didn't look like a man about to get married. He looked like a man facing the gallows. "You still have time to run," Sheriff Tom Lawson remarked from the doorway, amusement dancing in his eyes. Cole's mouth tightened into a grim line. The Diamondback needs that water rights contract. Clayton made it clear. No marriage, no merger with the Sinclair property, no access to the North Creek. He adjusted his string tie with calloused fingers. "It's just business, Tom. Marriage ain't never just business, Cole," the sheriff replied, his smile fading. "You haven't even seen her face." Cole turned away from the mirror. "Don't need to. The Diamondback is all I've got. I'll do what it takes to save it." Outside, the drought-stricken land stretched toward the horizon, fields once lush, now cracked and barren. Cole had built the Diamondback from nothing, turning a failing ranch into the region's most respected cattle operation through sheer determination and backbreaking work. But even he couldn't fight the sky. 3 years without proper rain had brought him to this moment, to a loveless arrangement with a woman sight unseen. From the back of the church came the soft notes of a badly tuned piano. Cole took his position at the altar beside Reverend Miller, whose sympathetic glance only heightened his discomfort. The pews held only a handful of people, Clayton Forrester from the bank looking smugly satisfied. Sheriff Lawson, Dr. Hayes and his wife, and a few ranch hands who'd drawn the short straw to represent the Diamondback. The piano wheezed into a halting version of the wedding march. The church doors opened and she appeared, Rebecca Sinclair, niece of the late Edmund Sinclair, whose death had left prime grazing land and critical water rights in her possession. Clayton had arranged everything, claiming she needed a husband to manage the property and Cole needed the water. A perfect solution, the banker had said, for a woman no one would want and a man too stubborn to leave a dying ranch. The whispers had been circulating for weeks. She was disfigured, she was mad, she was hiding something terrible. No one in Pine Ridge had seen her face, not even Clayton, who'd conducted all negotiations by mail. Cole watched her approach, a small figure draped in navy blue, her veil so thick he couldn't discern even the outline of her features beneath it. Her steps were measured, her posture straight as a fence post. When she reached him, she offered no greeting, no acknowledgement at all. She might have been a ghost for all the presence she commanded. "Dearly beloved," Reverend Miller began, his voice echoing in the near-empty church. Cole barely heard the words. His mind was on the drought, on the dying cattle, on the mortgage. Payments that kept him awake at night. He spoke his vows mechanically, noting that her voice, when she finally spoke, was surprisingly clear and steady. No fear, no emotion, just quiet determination. There was no ring, another detail Clayton had overlooked in his haste to secure the deal. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, an awkward silence fell. Cole realized everyone was waiting for him to kiss the bride. "The papers," Cole said instead, turning to Clayton. The banker produced the documents with a flourish. "Just need your signatures, and the Sinclair property officially belongs to both of you." Cole signed first, then handed the pen to Rebecca. She took it without a word, her gloved hand steady as she marked her new name. Only then did Cole notice that her fingers, even through the gloves, seemed oddly rigid. The drive to the Diamondback was silent. Rebecca sat as far from him as the wagon would allow, her veiled face turned toward the passing landscape. Cole didn't attempt conversation. What was there to say to a stranger you'd just pledged your life to? As they crested the final hill, the Diamondback spread out before them. A sprawling two-story ranch house, weathered but proud, surrounded by outbuildings, corrals, and pastures that stretched to the distant mountains. In better years, it had been the jewel of the valley. Now it looked tired, hanging on by sheer stubbornness, much like its owner. "Home," Cole said, the first word he'd spoken since they left the church. Rebecca didn't respond. Martha Wilson, Cole's housekeeper since his parents died, waited on the porch, her weathered face a mask of curiosity as they approached. The few ranch hands present stopped their work to stare as Cole helped Rebecca down from the wagon, careful not to touch more than her elbow. "Mrs. Wilson will show you to your room," Cole said, stepping back. "Supper's at 6. Rebecca tilted her veiled head slightly. "My own room." "The Diamondback has plenty of space," he replied, already turning toward the barn. "I'll have your trunk brought up." That night, Cole sat at the head of the long dining table, acutely aware of the veiled woman seated to his right. Martha had outdone herself with the meal, clearly hoping to impress the new mistress of the house. Rebecca ate little, somehow managing to slip small bites beneath her veil without revealing her face. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the clink of silverware against china. "Will you ever take it off?" Cole finally asked, gesturing to the veil. Rebecca set down her fork. "Does it bother you?" "It's your face." "Yet now it's your house," she countered. "Your ranch. Your name I'm wearing." Cole studied her, trying to discern any shape beneath the heavy fabric. "You agreed to this arrangement." "As did you," she said, rising from the table, without ever asking why a woman might choose to hide her face in a world that values little else about her. She paused at the doorway. "Good night, Mr. Trenton." Cole remained at the table long after she'd gone, wondering what kind of mess Clayton had gotten him into. A mad woman? A disfigured spinster? Or something else entirely? The Diamondback needed that water, but at what cost? The days that followed fell into an uneasy rhythm. Cole rose before dawn, working alongside his men until dusk, driving himself harder than anyone. Rebecca kept to herself, veiled always, speaking rarely. She took her meals in her room more often than not. When they did share the table, their conversations were brief, functional exchanges about the running of the house, yet Cole began to notice things. How she spent hours in the small library, devouring books on cattle ranching and water management. How she walked the property each afternoon, studying the irrigation ditches and the parched creek beds with careful attention. How she'd modified several of her dresses, shortening the hems to make walking the rough terrain easier. A week after the wedding, Cole returned from checking the north pasture to find Rebecca in his office, bent over the ranch ledgers. Her veil was secured tightly as always, but she discarded her formal dress for a simple skirt and shirtwaist. "Those are private," he said from the doorway. She didn't startle at his voice or attempt to hide what she was doing. "They're concerning. You're losing more cattle than you're reporting to the bank." Cole's jaw tightened. "What I report to? The bank is my business." "It's my business now, too," she said, closing the ledger. "The Sinclair property has water, but it needs significant work to channel it properly to the Diamondback grazing lands. You need capital for that work." I'll manage. Rebecca stood, squaring her shoulders. Your pride will be the death of this ranch, Mr. Trenton. And your secrets make it hard to trust your advice, Mrs. Trenton, he countered. She tilted her head, the gesture becoming familiar despite the barrier of the veil. Trust must be earned, on both sides. That evening, Martha found Cole on the porch, staring out at the darkening land. She's not what you expected, the housekeeper observed, settling into the chair beside him. Cole snorted. I don't know what she is. Can't even see her face. Maybe there's more worth seeing than a face, Martha suggested. She asked me about the drought today, wanted to know which sections of the ranch suffered first, which held out longest. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Those aren't the questions of someone who doesn't care. Cole frowned. She's protecting her investment. Martha gave him a withering look. That girl didn't need to marry you to keep her land. Clayton spun you a tale because he knew you'd never agree otherwise. What are you saying? I'm saying there's more to Miss Rebecca than a veil, if you'd bother to look. Martha rose with a sigh. She took some coffee out to the boys working the west fence line today. Jake said she knew more about fixing barbed wire than most greenhorns he's trained. Cole mulled over Martha's words as the stars emerged overhead. He'd been so focused on what Rebecca was hiding that he hadn't paid attention to what she was showing. The next morning, Cole intercepted Rebecca as she emerged from the house, veiled as always, carrying a small basket. I'm riding out to check the North Creek, he said abruptly. Would you like to come? See the property line between your land and mine. She hesitated, then nodded. I'll change into something more suitable. An hour later, they rode side by side across the sun-baked range. Cole watched her from the corner of his eye, surprised by her easy confidence in the saddle. Her riding habit had been altered, he noticed, with practical split skirts that allowed her to ride astride rather than side saddle. You've ridden before, he observed. Since I was a child, she replied. My father believed daughters should be as capable as sons. Your father, Cole ventured, testing the waters. Clayton mentioned he died some years ago. Rebecca's posture stiffened slightly. Yes, along with my mother and younger brother, influenza. I'm sorry, it was a long time ago. Her voice had gone flat, the way it did whenever the conversation veered toward her past. They reached the creek, a sad trickle where once clear water had flowed strong enough to support both properties. Cole dismounted, helping Rebecca down, without thinking. His hand lingered on her waist a moment too long. Even through the layers of clothing, he could feel how slender she was, almost fragile. It's worse than I expected, she said, moving away to crouch by the water's edge. But the Sinclair property has natural springs that haven't dried up. If we dug a proper channel... We, Cole interrupted. She looked up at him, the veil moving slightly with her breath. Isn't that what marriage is supposed to be? A partnership? Cole stared at her, this veiled enigma who spoke of partnerships while keeping herself hidden. Hard to partner with someone who won't even show you her face. Rebecca stood slowly. Some scars aren't meant to be displayed for others' comfort, Mr. Trenton. So it's scars you're hiding? She turned away, moving back toward her horse. We all have scars, Cole. Some are just more visible than others. It was the first time she'd used his given name. Something shifted between them in that moment. Not trust, not yet, but a recognition. They were both damaged in their own ways, both fighting to survive. Their ride back was quieter, but the silence had changed quality, less hostile, more thoughtful. As they approached the ranch house, Rebecca suddenly drew her horse to a halt. There's a rider coming, she said, pointing to a dust cloud approaching from the direction of town. Cole shaded his eyes against the sun. That's Sheriff Lawson's horse. They met the sheriff at the main house. Tom's usually cheerful face was grim as he dismounted. "Cole," he greeted, then nodded to Rebecca. "Ma'am." "What brings you out, Tom?" Cole asked, already knowing it wasn't a social call. The sheriff glanced uncertainly at Rebecca. "Might want to discuss this privately. Mrs. Trenton is part owner of the Diamondback now," Cole said, surprising himself. "She can hear whatever you have to say." Tom removed his hat, twisting it. In his hands had a telegram from over Blackwater Way. Judge Everett Blackwood's been asking questions about a woman matching Mrs. Trenton's description. Veiled lady, arrived by stage, recently married. Cole felt Rebecca go completely still beside him. "And?" he prompted. "And the judge is offering a substantial reward for information on her whereabouts. Says she's a ward of the court who fled. Legal proceedings." Tom looked uncomfortable. "Clayton saw the notice when he was over in Blackwater on bank business. He's the one who wired me." "That snake," Cole muttered. Then to Rebecca, "Is it true? Are you running from the law?" She didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was steady despite the slight tremor Cole could see in her hands. "Judge Blackwood has no legal claim on me. I am of age and sound mind, free to marry whom I choose. But he is looking for you," Tom pressed. "Yes." The single word hung in the air. Cole studied her veiled face, wishing he could see her expression. "Tom, thank you for the warning. I'd appreciate if you'd keep this information to yourself for now." The sheriff frowned. "Cole, if she's wanted—" "She's my wife," Cole interrupted, the words feeling strange on his tongue. "And I don't take kindly to outsiders making claims on what's mine." After Tom rode away, Cole turned to Rebecca, who stood rigid with tension. "I think it's time you told me what you're running from." She nodded once. "Not here, inside." In the privacy of his office, Rebecca stood by the window while Cole waited, giving her the space to find her words. When she finally spoke, her voice was low but unwavering. "Judge Blackwood was a friend of my uncle's. After my parents died, I went to live with my Uncle Edmund, the same uncle whose property I inherited. When Uncle Edmund fell ill last year, the judge began visiting frequently, offering his assistance." Her hands twisted together. "He made it clear that upon my uncle's death, he expected my gratitude to take a specific form." "Marriage," Cole guessed. "Ownership," she corrected. "The judge collects things, rare books, exotic animals, unusual curiosities. I was to be his latest acquisition." Cole's jaw tightened. "And the veil?" Rebecca turned to face him fully. "Judge Blackwood has powerful friends and a reputation for always getting what he wants. The veil ensured no one could identify me easily as I traveled. It was meant to be temporary." "But you've kept it on." "Yes." She hesitated. "At first, out of caution. Then, habit. Fear, perhaps." "Fear of what?" Cole asked, stepping closer. "That I'd find you unattractive? That I'd send you back?" "This marriage was a business arrangement," she reminded him. "My appearance was irrelevant to our contract." "It's relevant to me," Cole said quietly. "Not because I need a pretty wife, but because I need to know who I'm protecting. If Blackwood comes, and men like him always do, I need to know what I'm fighting for." Rebecca stood motionless for a long moment. Then, slowly, her hands rose to the edges of her veil. "You may be disappointed. Let me decide that." With a single fluid movement, she lifted the veil over her hat and let it fall behind her. Cole's breath caught. Her face was heart-shaped, with delicate features and clear, intelligent eyes, the color of the sky after rain. But what stopped him cold was the web of scars that covered the right side of her face from temple to jaw, puckered, angry marks that pulled slightly at the corner of her eye and mouth. "Fire," she said quietly. When I was 16, my face pressed against burning debris as I tried to pull my brother free. Her chin lifted slightly. Judge Blackwood said a face like mine should remain hidden, that it was offensive to normal people's sensibilities. Cole felt something fierce and protective surge within him. Judge Blackwood, he said carefully, sounds like a man who needs to be introduced to the business end of a branding iron. A startled laugh escaped her. The first he'd heard, transforming her face with unexpected warmth. That's not the usual reaction. I'm not usual, people. He stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of darker blue in her eyes. Thank you for showing me. The moment stretched between them, fragile and new. Then the dinner bell rang, breaking the spell. Rebecca reached for her veil, but Cole gently caught her wrist. Leave it, he said, unless you prefer to wear it. She searched his face, looking for disgust or pity, and finding neither. The ranch hands. Work for me, he finished, and you're the mistress of the Diamondback now. They'll show respect or find work elsewhere. Rebecca lowered her hands. I've hidden for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to be seen. We'll figure it out together, Cole said, offering his arm. Partners, remember? Her smile was tentative, but real as she placed her hand on his arm. Partners. At dinner that night, Martha did a double take when they entered the dining room, but recovered quickly, serving the meal without comment on Rebecca's unveiled face. Cole watched his wife throughout the meal, noticing how she gradually relaxed as the expected shock and revulsion never came. Later on the porch, Cole handed Rebecca a glass of whiskey and settled beside her in the gathering darkness. Tell me about Judge Blackwood. What can we expect? She took a small sip, grimacing at the burn. He's not a man who accepts defeat. When Uncle Edmund died and left everything to me instead of him, he tried to have me declared mentally unfit due to the trauma of my disfigurement. When that failed, he switched to courtship. Her laugh was bitter. When I refused his proposal, he became insistent, said no one else would want me, that I should be grateful for his interest. Cole's hand tightened around his glass. So you ran. I took what money I had, arranged the sale of some property through a lawyer in another town, and disappeared. She looked at him. Clayton contacted me about the Diamondback's water needs. I saw an opportunity, legal protection through marriage, a remote location, and a chance to put my inheritance to good use. You sought me out, Cole realized, not the other way around. Yes, I'm sorry for the deception. He shook his head. Don't be. We both got something we needed. He studied her in the fading light. But Blackwood won't stop coming, will he? No, she said quietly. He won't. Cole nodded, decision made. Then we'd better be ready when he does. The next morning, Cole called his ranch hands together and introduced them properly to Rebecca, unveiled, her scars visible to all. There were a few startled looks, but no one commented. Cole made it clear that she was to be respected as his wife and partner in the ranch. Then he explained about Judge Blackwood. Any strangers come asking questions, you send them to me, he instructed, and double the night watch until further notice. Rebecca stood beside him throughout, back straight, head high. When she spoke about her plans to improve the water flow from her property to the Diamondback, the men listened attentively. Cole watched with growing admiration as she detailed the irrigation system she proposed, answering technical questions with confidence. Oh, she knows her stuff, Jake, his foreman, commented later as they rode the fence line. Wouldn't have expected that from a city lady. She's full of surprises, Cole agreed. Over the next 2 weeks, Rebecca integrated herself into ranch operations with quiet efficiency. She worked alongside Martha in managing the household, rode out with Cole to inspect the property, and spent evenings poring over agricultural journals. She never wore the veil again, though Cole noticed she still angled her scarred side away from strangers. Slowly, the dynamics between them shifted. They began taking meals together regularly, their conversations extending beyond ranch business. Cole found himself telling her about his parents, how they'd built the Diamondback from nothing, how he'd struggled to keep it afloat after their deaths. She shared stories of her childhood, of her brother's mischief, of the books she loved. At night, they still retired to separate bedrooms, but Cole found himself lingering at her door, reluctant to say goodnight. And sometimes, when he looked up from his work to find her watching him with those clear blue eyes, he felt something stir within him that had nothing to do with business arrangements or water rights. The warning came on a Tuesday, nearly a month after the wedding. Dr. Hayes rode out from town, ostensibly to check on one of the ranch hands who'd taken a fall, but his real purpose became clear when he pulled Cole aside. "Strangers in town," the doctor said in a low voice. "Three men, well-dressed but hard-looking, asking about a veiled woman who might have passed through, showing a lot of cash for information." Cole's expression remained neutral. "Appreciate." "The warning, Doc." "There's more," Hayes continued. "Clayton was seen talking to them at length, and they're staying at the hotel, not moving on." That night, Cole briefed Rebecca. "Blackwood's men are here. Not the judge himself, not yet, but they're looking for you." She paled but kept her composure. "What do we do?" "We have options," Cole said, pacing the office. "You could leave, head north to Denver or west to California. I could arrange it." "Run again, you mean?" "Or we stand and fight," he continued. "But that puts the ranch at risk. Blackwood has resources, connections." Rebecca moved to the window, gazing out at the land they'd both worked so hard to improve. The first signs of recovery were visible. New calves, repaired fences, the beginnings of the irrigation channel connecting her property to his. "I'm tired of running," she said finally. "This is my home now. Our home." Cole came to stand beside her. "It won't be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is." She turned to face him. "But I won't risk the Diamondback or you." "Rebecca, no!" She placed a hand on his arm. "You didn't ask for this fight. It's mine." Cole covered her hand with his own. "You're my wife," he said, the words holding a weight they hadn't before. "Your fights are my fights now." That night, as they prepared for bed, a commotion erupted from the yard. Cole grabbed his rifle and rushed downstairs, Rebecca close behind. They emerged onto the porch to find Jake dragging a struggling man toward the house. "Found him sneaking around the south pasture," Jake explained, shoving the man to his knees. "Had these on him." He handed Cole a pair of field glasses and a small notebook. Cole examined the man, expensively dressed despite the trail dust, with cold eyes and a city man's soft hands. "Who are you?" The man glared up at him. "I'm a private investigator working for Judge Everett Blackwood of Blackwater County. And that woman," he jerked his chin toward Rebecca, "is a fugitive from justice." Rebecca stepped forward, allowing the man to see her face clearly in the lantern light. "I am Rebecca Trenton, legal owner of the Sinclair property and wife of Cole Trenton. I am no fugitive." The man's eyes widened slightly at the sight of her scars, but he recovered quickly. "Judge Blackwood has documentation declaring you mentally unsound and under his legal guardianship. You're coming with me, Mrs. Sinclair." Cole's rifle barrel pressed against the man's chest. "That's Mrs. Trenton to you, and she's not going anywhere. The judge will come for her himself," the man warned, "with proper legal authority." "Let him come," Cole replied. "The Diamondback welcomes visitors, once." He nodded to Jake. "See our guest to the property line. If he returns, treat him as a trespasser." After the man was escorted away, Cole and Rebecca retreated to the study. "It's starting," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Yes," Cole agreed, pouring them each a whiskey, "but we have something Blackwood doesn't." "What's that?" Cole handed her the glass, his fingers brushing hers. Something worth fighting for. The touch lingered, electric between them. Rebecca looked up at him, her scarred face open and vulnerable in a way the veil had never allowed. Cole. He set aside his glass and gently cupped her face, his thumb tracing the edge of her scars with a tenderness that made her breath catch. I married you for water rights, he said softly. But I'm fighting for you because I want to, Rebecca. Because somewhere between your veiled secrets and your unveiled courage, I started to care. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I, he confessed. Not of Blackwood, of this. He rested his forehead against hers. I wasn't looking for this. Neither was I. Her hands came up to rest on his chest. But here we are. When he kissed her, it wasn't part of any contract or arrangement. It was a promise, sealed in the quiet of the study as the ranch settled around them and danger gathered on the horizon. A promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. Partners. In truth, not just in name. Outside, a rider galloped toward town, carrying news to Judge Blackwood's men. The real battle for the Diamondback Ranch was just beginning. Dawn broke over the Diamondback in ribbons of crimson and gold, painting the weathered boards of the main house in warm light. Cole stood on the porch, coffee mug in hand, watching the horizon as the ranch slowly stirred to life. The encounter with Blackwood's investigator the previous night had changed things. What had begun as a business arrangement now carried the weight of something deeper, something he wasn't entirely prepared to face. The sound of footsteps drew his attention. Rebecca emerged from the house, her hair loose around her shoulders, catching the early morning light. She no longer attempted to hide the scarred side of her face, though Cole noticed she still tilted her head slightly by habit, an unconscious gesture of self-protection. "You're up early," he said, offering her his mug. She accepted it, taking a small sip before handing it back. "I couldn't sleep, too much on my mind," Cole nodded, understanding without needing the details. "I sent Jake and 2 men to patrol the property borders. If Blackwood's people return, we'll know." "They'll return," Rebecca said with quiet certainty, "and not alone next time." A comfortable silence settled between them as they watched the sun climb higher. Workers emerged from the bunkhouse, heading toward the barn and corrals. The routine of the ranch continued despite the threat hanging over them. Cattle needed tending, fences required mending, the new irrigation channel demanded attention. "I'd like to ride out to the North Creek today," Rebecca said suddenly. "Check the progress on the diversion dam." Cole studied her profile. "That's a 4-hour ride round trip." "I know." Her eyes met his, clear and determined. "I need to do something useful. Waiting makes me feel trapped," Cole finished. "I understand." He drained his coffee. "I'll have the horses saddled after breakfast." Martha served them a hearty meal of flapjacks, bacon and eggs, watching with poorly disguised satisfaction as they ate together, their conversation flowing more easily than it had since Rebecca's arrival. The housekeeper had taken an immediate liking to the unveiled Rebecca, treating her with a motherly affection that seemed to both surprise and please the younger woman. "Mrs. Wilson tells me you're riding out today," Martha said as she refilled their coffee cups. "I've packed some provisions." She shot Cole a meaningful look. "Don't keep her out too late, Mr. Trenton. Storm clouds brewing to the west." Cole nodded, recognizing Martha's concern went beyond the weather. After the housekeeper retreated to the kitchen, he leaned closer to Rebecca. "We should be back well before dark, but perhaps you should carry this." He slid a small derringer across the table. Rebecca picked it up, checking the chamber with practiced ease that raised Cole's eyebrows. "My father believed in preparation," she explained, tucking the weapon into her pocket. "It won't be my first time carrying protection." An hour later, they rode side by side across the vast expanse of the Diamondback. The drought had transformed once lush grazing land into a sea of yellowed grass and dusty earth. But even in its diminished state, the ranch held a rugged beauty. Cattle grazed in the distance, thin but surviving. Ranch hands tipped their hats respectfully as Cole and Rebecca passed, their initial curiosity about her scars giving way to acceptance. "Your men have adjusted quickly," Rebecca observed. Cole's mouth quirked in a half-smile. "Ranch life doesn't leave much time for dwelling on appearances. Results matter more than looks out here." "Is that why you never commented?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "On my face, when you first saw it." Cole considered his answer, wanting to give her honesty rather than platitudes. "I've seen men torn apart by stampeding cattle, burned by branding irons, trampled beyond recognition. Bodies heal how they heal." He glanced at her. "But I'll admit I was surprised. Surprised that someone would make you feel ashamed of surviving." His voice hardened. "This Blackwood, he's the kind of man who's never bled for anything important, never sacrificed. Men like that fear scars because they expose what they lack." Rebecca fell silent, digesting his words. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "Before the fire, I was considered a beauty. My uncle used to parade me at social gatherings like a prized filly." Her lips curved in a bitter smile. "Afterward, he kept me hidden away, said my appearance would reflect poorly on the family name." "Your uncle sounds like he deserved a good thrashing," Cole remarked. A startled laugh escaped her. "You have an unusual way of seeing things, Mr. Trenton." "Cole," he corrected, "if we're facing down corrupt judges together, you might as well use my given name." Their journey took them through a narrow canyon where the walls rose steep on either side, providing welcome shade from the increasingly hot sun. As they emerged into open country again, Cole noticed Rebecca straightening in her saddle, scanning their surroundings with heightened vigilance. "Something wrong?" he asked. "Just cautious." Her eyes continued to survey the ridgeline. "Judge Blackwood isn't known for patience. Once his investigator reports back, he'll move quickly." Cole followed her gaze, seeing nothing amiss. "How quickly?" "He once had a man arrested, tried, and sentenced within a day for stealing a pocket watch." Her voice was flat. "The man hanged before sunset." "Blackwater County isn't Pine Ridge," Cole reminded her. "Sheriff Lawson doesn't answer to Blackwood. Every man answers to someone." Rebecca's fingers tightened on her reins. "Or something. Money, power, fear." They crested a small rise, and the North Creek came into view, or what remained of it. A dusty channel marked where water had once flowed, with only the occasional muddy puddle suggesting moisture. But further upstream, near the property line that separated Diamondback land from what had been Sinclair territory, a wooden structure was taking shape. 4 ranch hands worked under Jake's supervision, building a diversion dam designed to channel water from the Sinclair Springs into the creek bed. Cole and Rebecca dismounted, approaching on foot. Jake straightened, wiping sweat from his brow. "Making good progress, boss. Should have water flowing by the end of the week if we don't hit rock." Rebecca moved to inspect the construction, her knowledge of irrigation surprising Jake. She pointed out a potential weakness in the design, suggesting an adjustment that would prevent erosion once the water began flowing. The foreman listened, attentively nodding as he recognized the wisdom in her words. "The men will need more timber," she said, turning to Cole. "The support beams should be doubled here and here." She indicated the critical junctures. Cole studied the structure, seeing how her suggestions improved the original plan. "We can send to Pine Ridge for more lumber tomorrow." "Actually," Rebecca said, "there's a stand of suitable pines on the old Sinclair property closer than town. It would save time and money to harvest our own." Our own. The casual phrase caught Cole's attention. She was thinking of their properties as a single entity now, not separate holdings. The realization pleased him more than he cared to admit. After providing further instructions to Jake and sharing the lunch Martha had packed, Cole and Rebecca continued their inspection of the property. She showed him features of the Sinclair land he hadn't fully appreciated. Natural springs hidden in rock formations, sheltered valleys where grass still grew green despite the drought, ancient trails used by wildlife seeking water. "You know this land well," Cole observed as they rested their horses in the shade of a massive cottonwood tree. "Better than someone who only inherited it recently." Rebecca trailed her fingers through the sparse grass. "I spent summers here as a child before my parents died. Uncle Edmund used the property mainly for hunting trips, but I explored every inch of it." Her expression softened with memory. "It was the only place I felt truly free." "And now?" She looked up at him, the sunlight dappling her face through the leaves overhead. "Now I'm beginning to feel that way at the Diamondback." Something warm unfurled in Cole's chest. Before he could respond, the distant crack of a rifle shot split the air. Both their horses jerked their heads up, ears pricked forward. "Get down!" Cole ordered, sliding from his saddle and pulling Rebecca with him. They crouched behind the massive trunk of the cottonwood as another shot rang out, this one splintering bark just feet above their heads. "Where?" Rebecca whispered, the derringer already in her hand. Cole peered carefully around the tree. "Ridge to the east. Can't see him, but he's got a good vantage point." "Blackwood's men? Or rustlers?" Cole checked his rifle, then his revolver. "Either way, we're pinned down." Rebecca scanned their surroundings. "There's a dry wash about 50 yards south. If we can reach it, it leads back toward the dam construction." Another shot kicked up dust near their feet, confirming the shooter was adjusting his aim. Cole made a swift calculation. "I'll draw his fire. You make for the wash." "No," Rebecca said firmly. "Together or not at all." Cole started to argue, then saw the resolve in her eyes. She wasn't asking for protection. She was demanding partnership. He nodded once. "On my count, then. 3, 2, 1. Now." They broke cover simultaneously, running in a zigzag pattern toward the dry wash. Shots followed them, but the distance and their erratic movement made them difficult targets. They slid down the embankment into the wash just as a bullet whined past Cole's ear. "You hit?" Rebecca asked, breathing hard. "No, you." She shook her head. "What about the horses?" "They'll head back to the ranch or follow the creek. Jake will find them." Cole peered cautiously over the edge of the wash. "Can't see the shooter anymore." "He's moving," Rebecca said grimly, trying to get a better angle. They began making their way down the wash, staying low, using the high banks as cover. The dry stream bed twisted and turned, sometimes narrowing until they had to proceed single file. Cole insisted on taking the lead, though he noted that Rebecca moved with the silent grace of someone accustomed to avoiding attention. After 20 minutes of careful progress, they paused to listen. No shots had followed them, but the silence felt oppressive rather than reassuring. "We're about a mile from the dam construction," Cole whispered. "If we can reach Jake and the others, we'll have numbers on our side." Rebecca nodded, wiping dust from her face. The movement drew Cole's attention to a thin line of blood on her cheek where a splinter of bark had caught her during their dash for cover. "You're hurt," he said, reaching to touch the small wound. "It's nothing." But she didn't pull away from his touch. For a moment, they remained frozen, his fingers gentle against her scarred skin. Then, a shower of pebbles from above broke the spell. Cole looked up sharply to see a man silhouetted against the sky at the edge of the wash. Rifle aimed directly at them. "Don't move," the man ordered. His voice carried the refined accent of someone educated back east, at odds with his rough appearance. "Mrs. Sinclair, Judge Blackwood sends his regards." Cole shifted slightly, positioning himself between Rebecca and the rifle. "The name's Trenton now, and you're trespassing on private property." The man smiled unpleasantly. "Correction. I'm retrieving stolen property on behalf of its rightful guardian." "I am not property," Rebecca said, her voice level despite the situation. "And Everett Blackwood has no claim on me, legal or otherwise. The judge's documents say differently." The man gestured with his rifle. "Now both of you out of the wash," slowly. Cole assessed their options with a rancher's pragmatism. The man had the high ground and a loaded rifle. Their only advantage was that he seemed to want Rebecca alive. "What's your plan?" Cole asked, stalling. "Force marches back to Blackwater? 2 against 1 aren't great odds for you, even with that rifle." The man's smile widened. "Who said I was alone?" On cue, 2 more men appeared at the edge of the wash, one upstream and one downstream, effectively trapping Cole and Rebecca in the narrow gully. All 3 were armed, and all 3 wore the same smug expression of men accustomed to getting their way through intimidation. "Last chance," the first man said. "Come quietly or we drag you both back to the judge. He only wants the woman, but he'll pay extra for the man who stole her." Cole felt Rebecca tense beside him. Without looking at her, he squeezed her hand. Once, a silent signal. Years of managing dangerous cattle and unpredictable weather had taught him to recognize when a situation demanded immediate action rather than careful planning. "All right," Cole said, raising his hands in apparent surrender. "No need for violence. We'll come up." The man gestured impatiently. "Ladies first." Cole shook his head. "I go first, or we don't go at all." After a moment's hesitation, the man nodded. Cole began climbing the steep bank of the wash, deliberately dislodging small rocks and making more noise than necessary. When he reached the top, he stumbled slightly, drawing the man's attention and causing him to step closer. It was all the opening Cole needed. He lunged forward, driving his shoulder into the man's midsection while simultaneously grabbing for the rifle. They crashed to the ground in a tangle of limbs and dust, the weapon discharging harmlessly into the air. Below, Rebecca didn't hesitate. As the other 2 men turned toward the commotion, she fired the derringer at the nearest one. The small pistol wasn't accurate at distance, but the shot was enough to make him duck for cover. Using the distraction, she scrambled up the opposite bank of the wash, staying low and using the sparse vegetation for concealment. Cole fought with the cold efficiency of a man who had broken wild horses and wrestled steers. He knocked the rifle away and delivered a punishing blow to his opponent's jaw, then rolled clear as the man pulled a knife from his boot. They circled each other, Cole's greater size balanced by the other man's blade. "The judge didn't say you had to be breathing when we brought you in," the man snarled, fainting with the knife. Cole didn't waste breath on a reply. He waited for the next thrust, then stepped inside the man's guard, catching his wrist and using his own momentum to throw him to the ground. The knife went flying. Before his opponent could recover, Cole delivered a knockout blow that left him sprawled unconscious. A gunshot cracked nearby, followed by a cry of pain. Cole spun to see Rebecca, standing over the second man who clutched his bleeding shoulder. The third man was nowhere in sight. "Where's the other one?" Cole asked, quickly retrieving both the rifle and the knife. "Ran," Rebecca said, her voice steady despite the flush of exertion on her cheeks. When he saw his friend go down, he bolted toward their horses. Cole examined the wounded man, who glared up at them with a mixture of pain and hatred. "What do we do with him?" "Leave me," the man spat. "The judge will find you anyway. He always does." Rebecca's expression hardened. "Tell Judge Blackwood that the next man he sends will get worse than a bullet in the shoulder." They bound the wounded man's injury with a strip torn from his own shirt, then used his belt to secure his hands behind his back. The unconscious man they left as he was, after removing all weapons and ammunition. "They'll free each other eventually," Cole said as they collected the dropped weapons, but it should give us enough time to reach the dam site. They set off on foot across the open country, moving as quickly as the rough terrain allowed. The sun had passed its zenith and was sliding toward the western mountains, lending urgency to their pace. Neither spoke much, saving their breath for the journey, but Cole found himself acutely aware of Rebecca beside him, her determined stride. The way she scanned the horizon continuously, the quiet competence with which she had handled herself during the confrontation. "You've done this before," he observed during a brief rest. "Fought off Blackwood's men." Rebecca took a small sip from the canteen they'd taken from one of their attackers. "Twice before I reached Pine Ridge. Once just outside Blackwater. Once near Thompson's Crossing." Her expression was grim. They weren't expecting resistance the first time. The second time they were prepared, but so was I. "How many men does Blackwood have?" "On his payroll directly, perhaps a dozen, but his influence extends throughout Blackwater County. The sheriff there, the telegraph operator, most of the merchants, they all answer to him in one way or another." She passed the canteen to Cole. "That's why I kept moving, never staying in one place long enough to be cornered." "Until now," Cole said. Rebecca met his gaze steadily. "Until now." The unspoken question hung between them. Had she made a mistake in stopping her flight, in tying herself to the Diamondback and to Cole? The ranch represented everything she had sought: legal protection, distance from Blackwood, a fresh start. But it had also made her a fixed target. Before Cole could address the matter, the distant sound of hoofbeats drew their attention. They ducked instinctively behind a rocky outcropping, weapons ready, but it was Jake who appeared over the rise, leading a search party of 4 ranch hands. Cole's relief was palpable as he stood and waved to attract their attention. "Your horses came back riderless," Jake explained as he dismounted. "Figured something was wrong." "Ambush," Cole said tersely. 3 men working for a Judge Blackwood from Blackwater County. We left 2 of them about 2 miles back. 1 wounded, the 3rd ran." Jake's weathered face darkened. "Attacking the boss and his wife on their own property? That's asking for trouble." "It's going to get worse before it gets better," Cole said, helping Rebecca mount one of the spare horses. "Double the night watch at the ranch. No one rides alone, especially Mrs. Trenton." The foreman nodded, understanding the severity of the situation without needing details. "What about those 2 back there?" "Leave them," Rebecca said, surprising both men. "Let them carry the message back to Blackwood. Let him know what he's facing." Cole raised an eyebrow at her, but didn't contradict her. As they rode back toward the ranch, the sun sinking lower on the horizon, he found himself reassessing Rebecca yet again. She wasn't just a woman in need of protection. She was a fighter in her own right, strategic and clear-eyed about the danger they faced. The Diamondback came into view as twilight painted the landscape in purple and gold. Lanterns had been lit in the windows of the main house, creating a beacon of warmth in the gathering darkness. For the first time since inheriting the ranch, Cole found himself thinking of it not just as a responsibility or a business, but as a home worth defending. Martha met them at the door, her relief at their safe return quickly giving way to concern, as she took in their disheveled appearance and grim expressions. "Inside, both of you," she ordered. "Supper's waiting and you look half dead from exhaustion." After brief wash-ups, they gathered in the dining room where Martha served a hearty beef stew and fresh bread. Cole sent Jake to town with a message for Sheriff Lawson, detailing the attack and requesting increased patrols near the Diamondback. "Do you think the sheriff will help?" Rebecca asked once they were alone. Cole tore a piece of bread thoughtfully. "Tom's a good man. He'll do what he can. But his jurisdiction only extends so far, and Blackwood's a judge with powerful connections." "We're on our own then?" "Not entirely." Cole met her gaze across the table. The Diamondback has friends, neighbors who've worked these lands for generations, who don't take kindly to outsiders threatening one of their own. One of their own, Rebecca repeated softly. Is that what I am now? You're my wife, Cole said, the words carrying more weight than they had during the ceremony. That makes you Diamondback, and Diamondback takes care of its own. A faint color rose in Rebecca's cheeks. For the first time, Cole wondered if she felt the same shift he did, the gradually changing nature of their arrangement from convenient merger to something with deeper roots. After dinner, they retreated to the study where Cole poured them each a small whiskey. The room had become their unofficial headquarters, its solid walls and heavy furniture offering a sense of security that felt increasingly precious. We need a plan, Rebecca said, standing by the window where she could watch the yard. Blackwood won't stop with today's failure. He'll send more men, better prepared next time. Cole leaned against his desk, calculating. How much does he want you? Rebecca's laugh was bitter. It's not about want anymore. It's about winning, about ownership. She turned to face him, the lamplight highlighting the stark lines of her scars. When I first ran, it was about my inheritance, the Sinclair property, the money. He thought if he controlled me, he'd control all of it. And now it's pride. No one defies Judge Everett Blackwood. Her voice hardened, especially not a scarred woman he believes is his by right. Cole's jaw tightened. He'll never touch you. You don't know him, Rebecca said quietly. He once tracked a man across 3 states for testifying against him in a land dispute, had him brought back to Blackwater in chains. What happened to him? Official report said he hanged himself in his cell. Her eyes met Cole's. No one believed it, but no one questioned it either. That's the kind of power Blackwood wields. Cole set down his glass with deliberate care. Then we need to change the balance of power. He crossed to a cabinet in the corner of the room, unlocking it with a key he kept on his watch chain. From inside, he withdrew a wooden box, which he placed on the desk between them. Rebecca approached cautiously. Cole opened the box to reveal a matched pair of Colt revolvers, their blued steel gleaming in the lamplight. My father's, Cole explained. He taught me to shoot with these when I was 12 years old. He lifted one, checking the action with practiced ease. The Diamondback wasn't always as peaceful as it is now. There was a time when rustlers and land grabbers made regular attempts on our herds and water rights. What happened to them? Rebecca asked. Cole's expression was grim. They learned that Trenton land comes with a price they couldn't afford to pay. He offered her the second revolver. You already know how to shoot. Time you had a proper weapon, not just that derringer. Rebecca accepted the Colt, testing its weight and balance. It was heavier than the small pistol she carried, but it felt right in her hand. Thank you, she said softly. We'll practice tomorrow, Cole said, and I'll show you the defensive positions around the ranch house. If Blackwood's men come in force, we need to be ready. Rebecca nodded, her expression thoughtful as she replaced the revolver in its velvet-lined compartment. Cole, if something happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you, he interrupted. If it does, she persisted, I want you to know that I've had papers drawn up. My attorney in Denver has instructions. Everything I own, the Sinclair property, my inheritance, it all goes to you if I can't hold it myself. Cole stared at her, taken aback. Why would you do that? Because you understand the land, she said simply. You respect it. You'd use it well. She paused, then added more quietly, and because you've shown me more kindness in our short marriage than most people have in my entire life. The admission hung in the air between them, raw and honest. Cole moved closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. Rebecca, a sharp knock at the study door interrupted whatever he might have said. Martha stood in the doorway, her expression troubled. Sheriff's here, she announced. Says it's urgent. Cole and Rebecca exchanged glances before moving. to the front parlor where Tom Lawson waited, hat in hand. The sheriff's normally affable face was grave, his posture tense. "Evening, Cole. Mrs. Trenton." He nodded to Rebecca respectfully. "Got your message about the attack. Came straight out." "Appreciate it, Tom," Cole said. "Did Jake fill you in on the details?" "He did, but that's not why I'm here." The sheriff shifted uncomfortably. "Telegraph came through from Blackwater this afternoon. Judge Everett Blackwood has filed formal charges against Mrs. Trenton for theft of Sinclair property and fleeing custody as his legal ward. He's appointed himself special prosecutor and has requested law enforcement assistance in apprehending her." Rebecca paled but remained composed. "He has no legal right. The Sinclair property was left to me in my uncle's will, properly witnessed and filed." "I believe you, ma'am," Sheriff Lawson said earnestly. "But Blackwood sent copies of guardianship papers signed by your uncle before his death, claiming you're mentally unfit to manage your affairs due to trauma from your injuries." "Forgeries," Rebecca said flatly. "Probably," the sheriff agreed, "but they bear the seal of Blackwater County Court. That gives them weight, at least until challenged properly." Cole stepped forward. "What does this mean, Tom? In practical terms?" The sheriff sighed heavily. "It means Blackwood's coming, and he's coming with the law on his side, or a reasonable facsimile of it. He's requested my cooperation in taking Mrs. Trenton into custody, pending a hearing in Blackwater." "Then will you cooperate?" Cole asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Sheriff Lawson met his gaze steadily. "I've known you since we were boys, Cole. Fought alongside your father against the Reynolds gang when they tried to take the Diamondback South pasture. You know where I stand." Some of the tension left Cole's shoulders. "When do you expect Blackwood?" 2 days, maybe 3. He's traveling with the delegation, his clerk, a doctor to evaluate Mrs. Trenton's mental state, and a small force of deputies, all very official-looking. The sheriff's disgust was evident. "Word is, he's been planning this for weeks, just waiting for confirmation of her whereabouts." Rebecca moved to the window, her reflection visible in the darkened glass. "He'll try to make it look legitimate, a concerned guardian recovering his troubled ward." Her voice was steady, but Cole could see the slight tremor in her hands. "Once he has me back in Blackwater, there will be no further pretense of legality." Sheriff Lawson cleared his throat. "There might be another option. Judge Harmon in the territorial court outranks Blackwood. If you could get to Denver, present your case directly." "Denver's 4 days' hard ride," Cole interrupted. "Blackwood would be here before we could reach the territorial judge." He joined Rebecca at the window, his presence solid and reassuring at her side. "No, we're not running. This ends here at the Diamondback." The sheriff studied them both, noting their unity, the protective stance Cole had unconsciously adopted. "All right, I'll stall as best I can, claim I need to verify the papers. Might buy you an extra day." He replaced his hat, brim low over his eyes. "But Cole, be careful. Blackwood's not just coming for Mrs. Trenton. He's coming to make an example." After the sheriff departed, Rebecca and Cole remained in the parlor, the weight of the coming confrontation settling around them like a physical presence. "You should reconsider Denver," Rebecca said finally. "Not for me, for the ranch, for your people." Cole turned to her, his expression resolute. "I meant what I said. This ends here." He took her hand, his calloused fingers engulfing her smaller ones. "I didn't fight for this land, build it into something lasting just to abandon it at the first sign of trouble. And I didn't marry you, even for water rights, to hand you over to a tyrant with forged papers." Rebecca looked up at him, searching his face. "This isn't your fight, Cole. It became my fight the moment you took my name." His grip tightened. "The moment you showed me your face." Something shifted in her expression. fear giving way, to determination, resignation, to resolve. "Then we prepare," she said, "for whatever comes." As if sealing a pact between them, Cole raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles with a gentleness that belied his rugged exterior. "For whatever comes," he agreed. Outside, the night settled over the Diamondback like a protective cloak, stars emerging one by one in the vast western sky. Within the ranch house, plans were laid, strategies formed, the battle lines were drawn, and in the midst of preparation for conflict, something else took root. A connection neither had sought, but both now recognized as worth defending, perhaps even worth dying for. Morning arrived at the Diamondback with the pinkish glow of dawn stretching across the horizon. Cole had been awake for hours, checking and rechecking the ranch's defenses. He'd positioned men at strategic points, inventoried ammunition, and established signals to alert everyone if Blackwood's delegation appeared. The ranch had transformed overnight from a working cattle operation to a fortress preparing for siege. He found Rebecca in the kitchen, sitting at the rough wooden table, while Martha kneaded bread dough with more force than necessary. Both women looked up as he entered, their conversation falling silent. "Everything's ready," Cole said, accepting the coffee Martha poured without asking. "Jake's got lookouts on the North Ridge. They'll spot anyone approaching from Blackwater." "Way," Rebecca nodded, her face composed despite the shadows under her eyes that spoke of a sleepless night. "And Sheriff Lawson? He'll warn us if Blackwood contacts him directly." Cole took a seat across from her. "But we can't count on official help. This has to be handled our way." Martha snorted as she punched down the dough. "Official help? As if that judge has any official business here, chasing after a grown woman like she's property." The housekeeper had become fiercely protective of Rebecca in the short time she'd known her. "Should poison his coffee if he sets foot in my kitchen. Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Cole said mildly, though a part of him appreciated Martha's loyalty. "Rebecca and I will be practicing shooting this morning. We need everyone combat ready." Rebecca raised an eyebrow. "Everyone? Even?" "Martha can handle a shotgun in a pinch," Cole said with the ghost of a smile. "My father made sure all Diamondback hands, house or range, could defend themselves." After a hearty breakfast that none of them fully appreciated, Cole led Rebecca to a secluded area behind the barn where he'd set up targets at various distances. He carried the wooden box containing the matched Colts and a canvas bag of ammunition. "Show me what you can do first," he said, handing her one of the revolvers. "I need to know where we're starting." Rebecca accepted the weapon with quiet confidence, checking the cylinder before loading it with practiced movements. She took position, feet properly spaced, both hands on the grip. Her first shot hit the center target dead center. The 5 shots that followed created a tight pattern around the first. Cole leaned against the fence post, impressed despite himself. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" "My father," Rebecca said, lowering the gun. "After my mother died, he became protective, insisted I learn skills most girls weren't taught." A faint smile crossed her features. "He said beauty might open doors, but a steady aim would keep them open." He was right, Cole observed, moving to replace the target with a fresh one, though I'm guessing he didn't anticipate this particular situation. "No," her expression sobered. "He died believing I would marry well, live safely, that my face would be my fortune." Cole paused in his task, studying her profile as she reloaded the revolver. The morning light illuminated her scars without cruelty, revealing their texture and the way they pulled slightly at the corner of her eye and mouth, but it was the dignity with which she carried them that struck him most forcefully. "Your face is still your fortune," he said quietly. "Just not in the way he imagined." She looked up, startled by his words. "What do you mean?" Cole hesitated, unused to articulating such thoughts. "Those scars, they're a map of who you are. what you've survived. They've shaped you into someone who doesn't break easily. He set up the last target. That's worth more than pretty features that fade with time. Rebecca stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she raised the Colt and fired 6 shots in rapid succession, hitting each target precisely. "My turn," Cole said, drawing his own weapon. His shooting was equally impressive, the steady hand and keen eye of a man who had defended his land against both human and animal threats for years. They spent the morning working on various scenarios, shooting from different positions, reloading quickly, firing while moving. Rebecca absorbed his instructions with quick intelligence, adapting her technique to fit his suggestions. By midday, they moved together with the synchronicity of longtime partners rather than reluctant spouses. "You're a natural," Cole remarked, as they collected the spent casings. "Most people flinch at least occasionally." "Flinching gets you killed," Rebecca replied matter-of-factly, "or caught." The simple statement revealed volumes about her life since fleeing Blackwood, constantly vigilant, always aware that hesitation could mean capture. Cole found himself wondering what toll such vigilance had taken on her, what it meant to live. Constantly on guard, they were walking back to the house when they heard a rider approaching at speed. Both drew their weapons instinctively, tension returning in an instant. But it was only Billy, one of the younger ranch hands who had been stationed in town to watch for news. "Mr. Trenton," the boy called, reining his lathered horse to a stop. "They're coming, Judge Blackwood's delegation. They arrived in Pine Ridge an hour ago." Cole and Rebecca exchanged glances. "Earlier than expected," Cole said grimly. "Sheriff Lawson with them." Billy nodded, trying to catch his breath. "Yes, sir. And about 10 men, all wearing deputy badges, though most of them don't look like any lawmen I ever saw. More like hired guns." "Where are they now?" "At the hotel. The judge is meeting with some folks from town. Sheriff asked me to tell you they'll likely ride out here tomorrow morning." Billy hesitated. "There's something else, sir." Clayton, Forrester from the bank, was waiting for them when they arrived, looked mighty pleased with himself. Cole's jaw tightened. "So, that's how Blackwood found Rebecca so quickly. Clayton's been feeding him information." Rebecca's face had gone pale, but her voice remained steady. "This changes things. If Blackwood has the banker on his side, he might have access to your mortgage, your finances. It wouldn't be the first time Clayton's tried to squeeze the diamond back," Cole said darkly, "but we have bigger concerns right now." He turned to Billy. "Ride back to town. Keep an eye on them, but don't get spotted. I want to know if they leave the hotel tonight." As Billy galloped off, Rebecca touched Cole's arm. "We should reconsider our options. If Blackwood has corrupted local officials—" "We stick to the plan," Cole interrupted. "The Diamondback stands its ground." Inside the main house, they gathered the core ranch personnel, Jake, Martha, and the foremost trusted hands. Cole laid out what they knew and what they suspected, including Clayton's apparent betrayal. "These men will be coming with badges and legal papers," he explained. "They'll try to make it look official, make us look like the outlaws if we resist. We need to be smarter than that." "What's the play, boss?" Jake asked, his weathered face serious. Cole looked at Rebecca, including her in the strategy. She straightened slightly, acknowledging his trust. "Judge Blackwood expects resistance," she said, "but he also expects it to be direct, confrontational. Men like him understand only force and submission." She traced a finger along the ranch map spread on the table. "What he won't expect is to be outmaneuvered at his own game." By sunset, the plan was set. Every person on the ranch had their role, every contingency covered as thoroughly as possible. Cole and Rebecca ate dinner in the dining room as usual, maintaining normalcy despite the charged atmosphere. Martha had outdone herself with the meal, as if good food might somehow ward off the coming danger. "You should try to rest," Cole said as they moved to the parlor afterward. Tomorrow will be demanding. Rebecca stood by the fireplace watching. The flames dance. I doubt I could sleep. Then at least sit, he suggested, pouring 2 small measures of whiskey. Save your strength. She accepted the glass but remained standing, her scarred profile illuminated by the fire's glow. Do you know what I fear most about tomorrow? She asked suddenly. Cole waited, giving her space to continue. Not Blackwood. Not even what might happen if he takes me. She turned to face him fully. I fear what might happen to you, to this place, to the people who've shown me kindness when they had no reason to. The Diamondback has weathered worse than one corrupt judge, Cole said, though they both knew it wasn't entirely true. Has it? Rebecca set down her untouched drink. Drought, financial pressure from the bank, and now this, all because I brought my troubles to your door. Cole moved closer, drawn by the vulnerability she rarely displayed. You didn't bring trouble, Rebecca. You brought water rights, partnership, and more courage than most men I've known. He hesitated, then added softly, and you brought yourself. The simple words hung in the air between them. Rebecca's eyes widened slightly, searching his face for any sign of insincerity. Finding none, she swallowed hard. I never expected this, she admitted. When I arranged our marriage, I thought it would be convenient, mutually beneficial, but separate, cold. And now, Cole asked, his voice low, now I find myself caring what happens to a stubborn rancher who married a veiled stranger for water rights. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. It's most inconvenient. Cole felt something shift between them, the careful distance they'd maintained, dissolving like morning mist under the sun's heat. Without overthinking, he reached out and gently traced the line of her jaw, his calloused fingers skimming over both smooth skin and raised scars with equal reverence. Rebecca. Her name was both question and answer on his lips. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned almost imperceptibly into his touch, her eyes never leaving his. This isn't in our contract, she whispered. To hell with the contract. Cole's hand slid to cup the nape of her neck, drawing her closer. Tell me to stop and I will. Instead of answering, Rebecca closed the remaining distance between them. Their lips met in a kiss that began tentatively but quickly deepened. Years of loneliness and guarded emotions giving way to something neither had expected to find. Her hands gripped the front of his shirt as if anchoring herself against a storm, while his free arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her firmly against him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing unevenly, Cole rested his forehead against hers. Well, he said hoarsely, that complicates things. A soft laugh escaped her, surprising them both. Yes, she agreed, though perhaps it clarifies. Them too. They remained together by the fire, talking in low voices as the house settled around them. Rebecca spoke of her life before the fire, the expectations placed on her as a beauty, the hollow compliments that never acknowledged her mind or spirit. Cole shared stories of building the Diamondback, the solitude that had become so familiar, he'd stopped recognizing its weight until she arrived. I used to hate these scars, Rebecca confessed, her head resting against his shoulder as they sat on the parlor sofa. Not for how they looked, but for how they changed how people saw me, as if the fire had burned away my personhood along with my skin. Cole's arm tightened around her. People see what's easiest to see. Few bother looking deeper. You did. She turned to look up at him. From the beginning, even when I was hiding. Maybe because I recognized another person who'd built walls, he said thoughtfully. Mine just weren't made of veils. The grandfather clock in the hall struck midnight, reminding them of tomorrow's coming confrontation. Neither mentioned moving to their separate bedrooms. Instead, Cole added another log to the fire, and they remained together, finding comfort in proximity as they discussed final adjustments to their plans. "If things go wrong tomorrow," Rebecca said softly, "I want you to know that I don't regret coming here, whatever happens." Cole lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her palm. "Nothing's going wrong, but I'm glad you came too." Dawn arrived too quickly, painting the eastern sky with streaks of crimson and gold that seemed ominous rather than beautiful. Cole and Rebecca prepared with the quiet efficiency of people who had accepted whatever might come. They dressed, practically, Cole in his usual ranch clothes but with a clean shirt in acknowledgement of the official nature of the coming meeting. Rebecca in a simple dress that allowed freedom of movement, her hair pulled back in a no-nonsense knot. Martha served breakfast, her usual chatter replaced by concerned glances and extra portions, as if food might somehow provide protection. Jake reported from the lookout that riders had been spotted on the main road, still distant, but definitely heading toward the Diamondback. "At least 8 men, the foreman said, accepting coffee from Martha, Sheriff Lawson among them, as expected." Cole nodded grimly. "Everyone knows their positions. Remember, we're aiming for resolution without bloodshed if possible. Blackwood wants a confrontation. We don't give him the satisfaction." The ranch hands dispersed to their assigned posts, tension visible in their movements despite their calm demeanor. These men had worked the Diamondback for years, some for decades. They'd faced rustlers, drought, and hard winters alongside Cole. Today's threat was different, but no less serious to them. Cole and Rebecca stood on the front porch, watching the approaching dust cloud grow larger. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining in a silent promise. "Ready?" he asked. She squeezed his hand once before releasing it. "Ready?" The delegation arrived with a show of official pomp that might have been impressive, if not for the obvious thuggish nature of most of the deputies. Sheriff Lawson led the procession, his expression carefully neutral, though his eyes conveyed a silent warning to Cole. Behind him rode a tall, distinguished-looking man in an expensive suit and broad-brimmed hat, Judge Everett Blackwood himself. Even from a distance, Cole could see why the man inspired both respect and fear. He carried himself with the confident authority of someone accustomed to unquestioned obedience. His silver hair and neatly trimmed beard gave him a patriarchal appearance that likely served him well in the courtroom. Only the cold calculation in his eyes hinted at the ruthlessness beneath the veneer of respectability. The party reigned too, a halt in the ranch yard. Sheriff Lawson dismounted first, approaching the porch with his hat in hand. "Morning, Cole," he said formally. "Mrs. Trenton." "Tom," Cole acknowledged. "Quite the procession you've brought to my door. Official business, I'm afraid." The sheriff's discomfort was evident. "Judge Blackwood has papers from Blackwater County Court regarding Mrs. Trenton." Blackwood dismounted with the fluid grace of a much younger man, handing his reins to one of his men. "Mr. Trenton," he called, his voice resonant and cultured, "I appreciate your receiving us without incident. This need not be unpleasant." Cole remained on the porch, deliberately not inviting the man closer. "Any particular reason? A judge from another county is making house calls on my ranch, Sheriff?" Lawson shifted uncomfortably. "Judge Blackwood has jurisdiction in this matter due to my legal guardianship of Miss Sinclair," Blackwood interrupted smoothly, climbing the porch steps uninvited. His gaze fixed on Rebecca, who met it without flinching. "My dear, you've led us on quite a chase. Your poor uncle would be most distressed to see what's become of you." "My uncle is dead," Rebecca said evenly, "and I am Mrs. Trenton now." "A marriage of convenience," Blackwood dismissed with a wave. "Entered into while you were not of sound mind and legally under my protection. I have the papers here." He patted his breast pocket. "Easily annulled once we have you properly settled and cared for." Cole stepped slightly forward. "Judge or not, You're on diamondback land making claims about my wife. I suggest you produce these papers and let Sheriff Lawson examine them before making further allegations. Blackwood's smile didn't reach his eyes. Of course, everything in proper order. He withdrew an official-looking document from his pocket, unfolding it with deliberate care. Sheriff, if you would. Lawson accepted the papers, reading through them with a furrowed brow. Cole watched the sheriff's face carefully, noting the moment his expression darkened. These appear to be guardianship papers signed by Edmund Sinclair before his death, Lawson said slowly, citing mental instability resulting from trauma as the cause. He glanced at Rebecca. There's also a medical evaluation signed by a Dr. Morris of Blackwater. A doctor who never examined me, Rebecca stated, and papers my uncle would never have signed willingly. Blackwood's expression hardened slightly. Your uncle recognized that your disfigurement had affected your mind, my dear. Your erratic behavior, your paranoia. Refusing your advances is not paranoia, Judge Blackwood, Rebecca interrupted, her voice cold, nor is protecting my inheritance from your attempts to seize it. A flash of genuine anger crossed Blackwood's face before he composed himself. You see, Sheriff, delusions, accusations, classic symptoms of her condition. Cole had heard enough. Sheriff Lawson, as I understand the law, a married woman's legal guardian is her husband, regardless of any prior arrangements. Generally speaking, yes, Lawson agreed cautiously. Not when the marriage itself is invalid, Blackwood countered smoothly. A woman under guardianship cannot legally consent to marriage without her guardian's approval. I gave no such approval. Udui, fortunately, a new voice called from the yard. That's not for you to decide, Everett. All heads turned to see Dr. Samuel Hayes climbing the porch steps, legal papers in hand, and Clayton Forrester following reluctantly behind him. What is the meaning of this intrusion? Blackwood demanded, his composure slipping. Dr. Hayes nodded respectfully to Cole and Rebecca before addressing the sheriff. Tom, I have here the original will of Edmund Sinclair, properly witnessed and filed with the Territorial Court in Denver. He handed over a thick document. It specifically names his niece, Rebecca Sinclair, as his sole heir and explicitly states that she is of sound mind regardless of her physical injuries. Blackwood's face darkened. That will was superseded by the guardianship papers. Oh, interesting claim, Dr. Hayes continued calmly, considering that according to the county records Mr. Forrester has graciously provided. He gestured to the uncomfortable banker. Edmund Sinclair was already deceased for 3 weeks when these guardianship papers were supposedly signed by him. A murmur ran through the assembled men. Sheriff Lawson's eyebrows shot up as he compared the dates on the documents. Furthermore, Hayes pressed his advantage, I have here affidavits from 3 of Edmund Sinclair's servants testifying that Judge Blackwood threatened and coerced them following their master's death, attempting to gain control of Miss Sinclair and her inheritance through intimidation. Blackwood's mask of civility cracked completely. This is preposterous. Forrester, you snake, you provided those records? Clayton stepped back nervously. The sheriff had a warrant, Judge. I had no choice. Sheriff Lawson, Cole said quietly, it appears Judge Blackwood has been attempting to perpetrate a fraud upon this county and my wife. I believe that falls under your jurisdiction. Lawson straightened, authority returning to his bearing as he turned to face Blackwood. Judge, I'm going to have to ask you to surrender any weapons and accompany me back to Pine Ridge for questioning regarding these allegations. Blackwood's laugh was cold. Don't be absurd. I am a sitting judge of Blackwater County. You have no authority over me. He turned to his men. Arrest Mrs. Sinclair as a mental incompetent. Anyone who interferes is obstructing justice. None of the deputies moved. Instead, ranch hands appeared from various positions around the yard, all armed and ready. Jake stepped forward, rifle balanced casually in his arms. "Seems to me," the foreman drawled, "that forging legal documents is a serious offense, even for a judge. Might want to reconsider your position." Blackwood's hand moved toward his coat, but Cole was faster. His revolver appeared as if by magic, aimed steadily at the judge's chest. "Don't," Cole said simply. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then, Rebecca stepped forward, placing herself beside Cole. "It's over, Judge," she said, her voice strong and clear. "You have no claim on me, my property, or my person. You never did." Blackwood's eyes burned with hatred as they fixed on her scarred face. "You think this changes anything? You're still a disfigured nobody who owns half the water rights in this county?" Cole interrupted coldly. "Who is legally married to me, who has the protection of the Diamondback and its allies." His grip on the revolver never wavered. "And most importantly, she's a woman with enough courage to stand against you when most men wouldn't dare." Sheriff Lawson moved deliberately between Blackwood and his men. "Judge, I'm placing you under arrest for document forgery, attempted kidnapping, and abuse of judicial authority. Your men can either surrender their weapons peacefully or face additional charges." "This is an outrage! I'll have your badge, Lawson!" Blackwood spluttered. "Perhaps," the sheriff acknowledged, "but today I'm doing my job." He turned to the deputies. "Boys, I don't know what he's paying you, but is it worth hanging for? Because that's where this road leads if you draw on us." The fight seemed to drain from Blackwood's men as they assessed the situation, outnumbered, outpositioned, and suddenly, on the wrong side of the local law. One by one, they handed over their weapons to Cole's ranch hands. Blackwood himself stood rigid with fury, his aristocratic features twisted in a snarl. All heads turned to see Dr. Samuel Hayes climbing the porch steps, legal papers in hand, and Clayton Forrester following reluctantly behind him. "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" Blackwood demanded, his composure slipping. Dr. Hayes nodded respectfully to Cole and Rebecca before addressing the sheriff. "Tom, I have here the original will of Edmund Sinclair, properly witnessed and filed with the Territorial Court in Denver." He handed over a thick document. It specifically names his niece, Rebecca Sinclair, as his sole heir, and explicitly states that she is of sound mind regardless of her physical injuries. Blackwood's face darkened. That will was superseded by the guardianship papers. "Interesting claim," Dr. Hayes continued calmly, "considering that according to the county records Mr. Forrester has graciously provided." He gestured to the uncomfortable banker. "Edmund Sinclair was already deceased for 3 weeks when these guardianship papers were supposedly signed by him." A murmur ran through the assembled men. Sheriff Lawson's eyebrows shot up as he compared the dates on the documents. "Furthermore," Hayes pressed his advantage, "I have here affidavits from 3 of Edmund Sinclair's servants, testifying that Judge Blackwood threatened and coerced them following their master's death, attempting to gain control of Miss Sinclair and her inheritance through intimidation." Blackwood's mask of civility cracked completely. "This is preposterous. Forrester, you snake, you provided those records?" Clayton stepped back nervously. "The sheriff had a warrant, Judge. I had no choice." "Sheriff Lawson," Cole said quietly, "it appears Judge Blackwood has been attempting to perpetrate a fraud upon this county and my wife. I believe that falls under your jurisdiction." Lawson straightened, authority returning to his bearing as he turned to face Blackwood. "Judge, I'm going to have to ask you to surrender any weapons and accompany me back to Pine Ridge for questioning regarding these allegations." Blackwood's laugh was cold. "Don't be absurd. I am a sitting judge of Blackwater County. You have no authority over me." He turned to his men. "Arrest Mrs. Sinclair as a mental incompetent. Anyone who interferes is obstructing justice." None of the deputies moved. Instead, ranch hands appeared from various positions around the yard, all armed and ready. Jake stepped forward, rifle balanced casually in his arms. "Seems to me," the foreman drawled, "that forging legal documents is a serious offense, even for a judge. Might want to reconsider your position." Blackwood's hand moved toward his coat, but Cole was faster. His revolver appeared as if by magic, aimed steadily at the judge's chest. "Don't," Cole said simply. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then Rebecca stepped forward, placing herself beside Cole. "It's over, Judge," she said, her voice strong and clear. "You have no claim on me, my property, or my person. You never did." Blackwood's eyes burned with hatred as they fixed on her scarred face. "You think this changes anything? You're still a disfigured nobody who owns half the water rights in this county?" Cole interrupted coldly. "Who is legally married to me, who has the protection of the Diamondback and its allies." His grip on the revolver never wavered. "And most importantly, she's a woman with enough courage to stand against you when most men wouldn't dare." Sheriff Lawson moved deliberately between Blackwood and his men. "Judge, I'm placing you under arrest for document forgery, attempted kidnapping, and abuse of judicial authority. Your men can either surrender their weapons peacefully or face additional charges. This is an outrage. I'll have your badge, Lawson." Blackwood spluttered. "Perhaps," the sheriff acknowledged, "but today I'm doing my job." He turned to the deputies. "Boys, I don't know what he's paying you, but is it worth hanging for? Because that's where this road leads if you draw on us." The fight seemed to drain from Blackwood's men as they assessed the situation. Outnumbered, outpositioned, and suddenly, on the wrong side of the local law. One by one, they handed over their weapons to Cole's ranch hands. Blackwood himself stood rigid with fury, his aristocratic features twisted in a snarl. "This isn't over," he hissed at Rebecca. "A man in my position has resources, connections you can't imagine." "So do I," Rebecca replied calmly, starting with the truth. As Sheriff Lawson led Blackwood and his men away, the tension that had gripped the Diamondback for days finally began to ease. Cole holstered his revolver and turned to Dr. Hayes. "Your timing couldn't have been better, Doc," he said, extending his hand. "How did you manage it?" Hayes shook Cole's hand warmly. "Been suspicious of those guardianship rumors since they first started circulating. When Sheriff Lawson told me Blackwood was coming with official papers, I decided to do some investigating of my own." He nodded to the banker. "Mr. Forrester was surprisingly helpful once I explained the potential legal consequences of supporting fraudulent documents." Clayton looked thoroughly uncomfortable. "I didn't know the papers were forged," he insisted. "Blackwood's reputation. Save it for the judge in Denver," Cole cut him off. "For now, just know that the Diamondback won't be doing business with your bank anymore." As the yard cleared, Cole and Rebecca stood together on the porch, watching the dust cloud of the departing delegation fade in the distance. Martha emerged from the house, relief evident on her face. "It's really over?" she asked. "This part, at least," Cole answered honestly. "Blackwood won't go down without a fight, but he's lost his advantage. The law's on our side now." Martha nodded, satisfied for the moment. "I'll get lunch started. Everyone will be hungry after all this excitement." She disappeared back into the house, already calling orders to the kitchen staff. Alone on the porch, Cole turned to Rebecca. "You handled yourself well." "So did you," she replied. "Not many men would have stood against a judge and his armed deputies. Not many women would have faced down the man who's been hunting her for months," he countered. Rebecca's smile was small but genuine. It helps to have something worth fighting for. She glanced at the ranch spreading before them, then back to Cole. someone worth fighting for. Cole stepped closer, his hand coming up to gently trace the line of her scars. "These don't define you," he said softly, "but they are part of what makes you extraordinary." For the first time since he'd known her, Rebecca didn't tense at the mention of her scars. Instead, she leaned into his touch, her eyes closing briefly. "I spent so long hiding," she murmured, "not just behind the veil, but behind walls I built to keep everyone at a distance. It became a habit, a way of surviving." "And now?" Cole asked, his thumb brushing the corner of her mouth. She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze directly. "Now I find I don't want to hide anymore. Not from you." The admission hung between them, honest and vulnerable in a way neither had allowed themselves to be before. Cole drew her closer, his arms encircling her waist as he bent to press his forehead against hers. "Good," he said simply, "because I'm just getting to know the real Rebecca Trenton, and I find I'm quite taken with her." Her laugh was soft but uninhibited. "Is that so, Mr. Trenton, despite all the trouble I've brought to your door?" "Because of it," he corrected. "You've woken up this ranch, woken me up." His expression grew serious. "I married you for water rights, Rebecca, but I'm falling in love with you for entirely different reasons." The words surprised them both. Cole hadn't planned to say them, hadn't even fully acknowledged the depth of his feelings until they were spoken aloud. Rebecca's eyes widened, searching his face for any sign of insincerity. "Love," she repeated softly, as if testing the word. "I didn't think that was possible anymore. Not for someone like me. Someone strong, intelligent, brave." Cole's smile was tender. "I'd say that makes you exactly the kind of person worth loving." This time, when they kissed, there was no hesitation, no holding back. It was a promise, an affirmation of everything they'd discovered in each other during these days of danger and revelation. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, the world around them seemed to have shifted into sharper focus, colors more vivid, sensations more intense. "What happens now?" Rebecca asked, her hands still resting on his chest. "Now," Cole said, "we build something together." The Diamondback and the Sinclair property joined not just on paper, but in purpose. Water flowing where it's needed, cattle growing strong, a home worth protecting. "A partnership," she suggested. "A marriage," he corrected gently. "A real one, if you want it." Rebecca's smile bloomed slowly, transforming her face with a joy that made her scars seem insignificant against the light in her eyes. "I do want it," she said. "Very much." From the house came the sounds of life returning to normal. Martha's voice directing the staff, boots on the wooden floors, the clatter of dishes being set for lunch. Outside, ranch hands returned to their duties, the rhythm of the Diamondback reasserting itself after the morning's disruption. Cole offered Rebecca his arm. "Shall we join the others? I believe we have a ranch to run, Mrs. Trenton." She slipped her hand through his arm, standing tall and unveiled beside him. "Lead the way, Mr. Trenton." Together they walked into the house, stepping into a future neither had imagined when they'd first exchanged their business-like vows. Ahead lay challenges, Blackwood's continued threats, the ongoing drought, the daily struggles of ranch life. But for the first time they would face them not as reluctant partners in a convenient arrangement, but as a united front, bound by something far stronger than legal documents or water rights. As they crossed the threshold, Rebecca paused, looking back at the open land stretching to the horizon. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "I never thanked you." "For what?" Cole asked. "For seeing me," she answered simply. "The real me beneath. The veil beneath the scars, for looking deeper when most people stopped at the surface." Cole's hand covered hers where it rested on his arm. "I'm just glad you let me see," he said. "It takes courage to be truly known." "It takes the right person to be worth the risk," she countered. Their eyes met in silent understanding. Then they turned together and stepped fully into the house, leaving the door open behind them to let in the sunlight and the promise of tomorrow. 3 months had transformed the Diamondback. The irrigation channels connecting the Sinclair springs to the ranch's grazing lands now flowed with life-giving water, turning parched earth green again. Cattle that had grown thin during the drought began to put on weight. Calves frolicked in meadows that had been dust just weeks before. The ranch hands moved with renewed purpose, and laughter had returned to the bunkhouse in the evenings. Cole stood on the ridge, overlooking the north pasture, satisfaction evident in his stance. Beside him, Rebecca pointed toward a cluster of trees where a new pond had formed, attracting wildlife back to the property. "The water table's rising," she said. "Next year we might be able to expand the irrigation to the eastern section." Cole nodded, his hand finding hers with the easy familiarity that had developed between them. "The Diamondback's coming back stronger than ever." Rebecca's smile reached her eyes, no longer shadowed by fear. In the month since Blackwood's arrest, she had blossomed like the land itself, the constant vigilance that had marked her movements gradually giving way to confidence. She still carried the matched Colt revolver Cole had given her, but now it was habit rather than necessity. "News from town?" she asked as they mounted their horses for the ride back to the ranch house. "Tom says the territorial court has set a date for Blackwood's trial next month," Cole replied. "The forgery charges alone should put him away for years, not to mention the attempted kidnapping. And Clayton, singing like a bird to save his own hide. Turns out he and Blackwood had quite the arrangement. Clayton would help identify vulnerable properties, and Blackwood would use his judicial power to force foreclosures." Cole's expression darkened. "Half the county's been under their thumb for years." Rebecca nodded thoughtfully. "That explains why Uncle Edmund was so insistent I never deal with Clayton's bank." She guided her horse around a rocky outcropping. "What about the new banker?" "Margaret Wilson seems solid. Her father ran the Silverdale Bank for 30 years without a whisper of scandal, and she's offered fair terms for refinancing the Diamondback mortgage." "A woman banker," Rebecca mused. "Times are changing." "For the better," Cole agreed, his gaze lingering on her profile. The proud set of her chin, the scars she no longer attempted to hide. As they crested the final hill before the ranch house came into view, they both reined to a stop. A cloud of dust on the road indicated riders approaching, at least 4, moving at a steady pace. "Expecting visitors?" Rebecca asked, tension returning to her posture. Cole shook his head, one hand moving instinctively to his sidearm. "No. And that's not coming from town." They watched for a moment longer, then Cole made a decision. "Let's get back. Could be nothing, but I don't like surprises." They urged their horses to a canter, taking a direct route toward the ranch. By the time they reached the yard, Jake had already spotted the approaching riders and positioned men strategically around the property. "4 riders," the foreman confirmed. "Not from around here from the look of their horses. Eastern stock, fancy gear." Cole nodded his thanks. "Keep everyone alert but not obvious. Could be nothing, could be trouble." Rebecca disappeared inside, briefly emerging minutes later with her hair neatly pinned and a fresh blouse replacing her dusty riding shirt. Cole raised an eyebrow at the transformation. "If it's trouble," she explained, "I prefer to meet it looking my best." A smile tugged at his lips despite the tension. "You always look your best." The riders appeared at the end of the long drive leading to the ranch house. 3 men and, surprisingly, a woman. All were well dressed, their horses high quality, animals that spoke of wealth. As they drew closer, Cole heard Rebecca's sharp intake of breath. "What is it?" he asked quietly. "The woman," Rebecca whispered. "It's Eleanor Sinclair, my mother's sister." Before Cole could respond, the visitors reached the yard. The man in the lead, silver-haired, distinguished, with an air of authority, dismounted first, then helped the woman down with practiced and courtesy. The two younger men remained mounted, alert but not overtly threatening. "Rebecca," the woman called, her voice carrying a slight southern accent. "My dear girl, we've found you at last." Rebecca stood frozen on the porch, her hand finding Cole's for support. "Aunt Eleanor," she acknowledged stiffly, "this is unexpected." The older woman approached, her gaze taking in Rebecca's scarred face with no change in her warm expression. "You look well, child, though much changed from when I saw you last. The fire was 8 years ago, Aunt. People change." The silver-haired man stepped forward. "Perhaps introductions are in order. I am Judge William Harmon of the Colorado Territorial Court. This is Mrs. Eleanor Sinclair Harmon, my wife." He gestured to the mounted men. "And my associates, Mr. Phillips and Mr. Dawson." Cole straightened at the title. "Judge Harmon from Denver?" "The same." The judge's keen eyes assessed Cole. "And you would be Cole Trenton, I presume, the man who married my wife's niece?" "I am." Cole's posture remained protective as he stood beside Rebecca. "What brings a territorial judge all the way to the Diamondback?" "Eleanor Sinclair Harmon." Move toward the porch steps. "May we come inside, Rebecca? It's a long story, and I've been riding since dawn." After a moment's hesitation, Rebecca nodded. "Martha," she called to the housekeeper who was watching from the doorway, "please prepare refreshments for our guests." Inside the parlor, an uncomfortable silence settled as the visitors took seats. Eleanor's gaze kept returning to Rebecca's face, not with revulsion but with something like sorrow. "I've been looking for you for 3 years," she finally said, "ever since I learned of Edmund's death." Rebecca's expression remained guarded. "I wasn't aware we were close enough to warrant such concern." "We weren't," Eleanor acknowledged. "Frankly. After your parents died, Edmund made it clear my presence wasn't welcome, said a Southern widow had nothing to offer his household." Her voice softened. "But you were my sister's only child, Rebecca. I never stopped thinking of you." Judge Harmon leaned forward. "When we married 2 years ago, Eleanor shared her concerns about your situation, particularly after rumors reached us about Edmund's associate, Judge Blackwood." "Blackwood," Cole said flatly. "He's currently awaiting trial for forgery and attempted kidnapping, among other charges." "So we've heard," Harmon nodded. In fact, that's partly why we're here." Rebecca tensed. "If you've come to take me back east." "No, child," Eleanor interrupted gently. "We've come to make sure you're safe and to deliver something that belongs to you." Judge Harmon withdrew a document case from his coat. "Shortly before your uncle's death, he sent these papers to the Territorial Court for safekeeping. They were misfiled and only recently discovered during an audit." He passed the case to Rebecca. "I believe you'll find them enlightening." With steady hands, Rebecca opened the case and removed several official-looking documents. As she read, her expression changed from wariness to astonishment. "What is it?" Cole asked. "A sworn affidavit from Uncle Edmund," Rebecca said slowly, "naming Judge Blackwood as his murderer." A stunned silence fell over the room. "Edmund suspected Blackwood was poisoning him," Eleanor explained. "He'd been investigating the judge's dealings for months, documenting how Blackwood had systematically corrupted officials throughout Blackwater County." "The second document," Judge Harmon continued, "is Edmund's true final will, properly witnessed and filed with the Territorial Court. It names Rebecca as his sole heir and explicitly warns against any guardianship claims by Blackwood." Cole leaned over to read the papers. "This changes everything. With this evidence, Blackwood won't just face forgery charges," Harmon finished. "He'll hang for murder." Rebecca set the documents down carefully, her face pale but composed. "All this time," she whispered, "Uncle Edmund was trying to protect me. I thought he was ashamed of me after the fire, but he was gathering evidence against Blackwood." Eleanor moved to sit beside her niece, hesitantly taking her hand. "Your uncle wasn't demonstrative, but he loved you fiercely, Rebecca. When he realized what Blackwood was planning, how the judge had set his sights on both you and the Sinclair fortune, he acted to safeguard your future. At the cost of his own life," Rebecca said softly. Harmon nodded gravely. "Edmund Sinclair was a complicated man, but a just one. He deserves to have his final wishes honored and his murderer brought to justice." Martha arrived with a tray of coffee and freshly baked biscuits, her curious glances moving between Rebecca and her newfound relative. As she served them, Cole noted the protective way the housekeeper hovered near Rebecca, as if ready to intervene should these unexpected visitors cause distress. "Those biscuits smell delightful," Eleanor remarked, accepting a cup from Martha. "Just like Catherine used to make. Do you remember, Rebecca, your mother would bake on Saturday mornings, and the whole house would smell of butter and honey?" A flash of surprise crossed Rebecca's face. Yes, I'd forgotten that." Her voice softened with memory. "She'd let me shape the last bits of dough into whatever I wanted." "Horses mostly," Eleanor smiled. "Even then you loved them." This small shared recollection seemed to ease some of the tension in Rebecca's shoulders. Cole watched the interaction carefully, sensitive to her responses. Trust came hard for Rebecca, and family, especially family who appeared without warning, after years of absence, would naturally trigger her caution. "You could have sent these documents with a courier," Cole observed, bringing the conversation back to practical matters. "Why come in person?" Judge Harmon exchanged a glance with his wife before answering. "These papers implicate a sitting judge in murder and wide-ranging corruption. I wasn't about to entrust them to regular mail service or an unknown messenger. And," Eleanor added softly, "I needed to see for myself that Rebecca was well." Her gaze was direct but gentle. "When we heard rumors of a veiled woman who had suddenly married and disappeared into the Western Territories, I feared Blackwood might have forced you into some arrangement." Rebecca's hand found Cole's instinctively. "No one forced anything. My marriage to Cole was my choice. A fortuitous one, it seems," Judge Harmon observed, his keen eyes noting their joined hands. Eleanor studied them both for a moment. "Was it an arrangement of convenience initially? I understand such practical partnerships are common in these parts." Cole felt Rebecca tense beside him and spoke before she could feel compelled to explain. "How we began is less important than where we stand now." His tone was respectful but firm. "Rebecca is my wife and partner in every sense that matters." Eleanor nodded slowly, seeming to accept this. "Of course. Forgive my presumption. It's just—" She hesitated, then continued more carefully. "After everything you've endured, Rebecca, I want to be certain your current situation brings you happiness, not merely security." For the first time since their visitors arrived, a genuine smile touched Rebecca's lips. "It brings me both, Aunt Eleanor, and more besides." Her grip on Cole's hand tightened slightly. "The Diamondback has become my home in ways I never expected." "I'm glad," Eleanor said simply. "Your mother would have wanted that for you." A comfortable silence fell, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall and the distant sounds of ranch life continuing outside. The lowing of cattle, the rhythmic pounding of hammer on metal from the smithy, the calls of ranch hands coordinating their tasks. Judge Harmon cleared his throat. "There is another matter we should discuss. Blackwood's trial." Rebecca straightened. "What about it?" "With these new documents, the territorial court will take over jurisdiction. From the county court, the proceedings will move to Denver. The judge's expression was somber. And you, Mrs. Trenton, will need to testify. Cole felt Rebecca go still beside him. Testify, she repeated, in open court with Blackwood present. Yes, Harmon confirmed. Your testimony, combined with your uncle's affidavit and the evidence of forgery already gathered, will ensure Blackwood faces the full consequence of his crimes. Do I have a choice? Rebecca asked quietly. Eleanor leaned forward. Rebecca, if it's too difficult... It's not a question of difficulty, Rebecca interrupted. It's a question of whether my testimony is truly necessary or merely spectacular. Her fingers unconsciously traced the edge of her scarring. I've had my fill of being stared at as a curiosity. Judge Harmon considered her words carefully. The prosecution could proceed without you, particularly with Edmund's affidavit. But your testimony would strengthen the case considerably. Blackwood has powerful friends who will try to discredit the charges. Cole's protective instincts surged after everything she's been through to subject her to public scrutiny and Blackwood's presence. I'll do it, Rebecca said firmly, surprising them all. If my testimony helps ensure he can never hurt anyone else, then the discomfort is worth it. Cole studied her face, seeing the determination beneath the apprehension. You're sure? No, she admitted with a small smile. But I'm tired of hiding Cole, from Blackwood, from Stairs, from my past. She turned to Judge Harmon. When would you need me in Denver? The trial begins in 4 weeks. We could arrange for you to arrive a few days prior to prepare with the prosecutor. Harmon's expression softened. Eleanor and I would be honored to have you and Mr. Trenton stay with us during the proceedings. That's very kind, Rebecca began hesitantly. Cole recognized her uncertainty and stepped in smoothly. We appreciate the offer, Judge Harmon. Let us discuss the arrangements and send word to you in Denver. Of course, the judge agreed easily. No need to decide everything today. Eleanor set down her coffee cup. Rebecca, while the men discuss legal matters, perhaps you might show me around your home. I'd love to see what you've done with the place. Rebecca hesitated only briefly before nodding. I'd like that. As the women left the parlor, Cole noticed how Eleanor respectfully maintained a slight distance, not presuming upon a familiarity they hadn't yet re-established. It spoke well of her understanding and patience. Once they were alone, Judge Harmon's demeanor shifted subtly from cordial guest to professional assessment. Your wife has been through a remarkable ordeal, Mr. Trenton. She has, Cole agreed, and emerged stronger for it. Indeed. The judge studied him thoughtfully. When I first heard my wife's niece had hastily married a rancher she'd never met, I had serious concerns. Understandable. But seeing you together today, those concerns have largely been laid to rest. Harmon leaned forward slightly. Still, I must ask directly, do you understand what you've taken on by marrying Rebecca? Blackwood's defeat isn't guaranteed. Men of his influence have escaped justice before. Cole met the judge's gaze steadily. I understand exactly what I've committed to, Judge Harmon. Rebecca isn't a burden I've taken on. She's a partner I'm privileged to stand beside. Harmon nodded slowly. Good answer. And if Blackwood should somehow evade conviction, then the Diamondback remains ready. Cole's voice hardened slightly. Rebecca's safety isn't dependent on the courts. We've made arrangements. I expected nothing less. Harmon relaxed marginally. Now, about the practical matters of the trial. Meanwhile, Rebecca led Eleanor through the main house, showing her the improvements they'd made since her arrival. The expanded kitchen garden, the library where she'd organized Edmund's old agricultural texts, the study where she and Cole planned the ranch operations together. You've created something remarkable here, Eleanor observed as they stepped onto the back porch overlooking the corrals. Not just a home, but a true partnership with your husband. Rebecca leaned against the porch railing. It didn't start that way. Our marriage was a business arrangement. His land, my water. And now, a soft smile touched Rebecca's lips. Now it's everything I never dared hope for. Eleanor studied her niece's profile, her gaze lingering on the scarred side of her face. May I ask about the fire? Edmund wrote that it was an accident, but provided few details. Rebecca tensed slightly but nodded. We were visiting friends in Virginia. Their house caught fire in the night. I went back in for my younger brother. Her voice grew distant with memory. The ceiling collapsed as I was carrying him out. A burning beam. Her hand rose unconsciously to her face. I survived, he didn't. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Oh, my dear girl, I had no idea. Uncle Edmund didn't speak of it, Rebecca said. After my recovery, he kept me hidden away. Said it was to protect me from curious stares, but I think he simply couldn't bear to see the evidence of his failure. Failure? To protect his brother's children, to save my brother. Rebecca shrugged slightly. Or perhaps he truly was ashamed of how I looked. We never discussed it directly. Eleanor's expression hardened. If Edmund made you feel ashamed of surviving, of your scars, then he failed you in ways far more significant than he realized. Rebecca looked surprised at her aunt's vehemence. Those scars, Eleanor continued more gently, are testament to your courage, to your willingness to risk everything for someone you loved. They are badges of honor, Rebecca, not marks of shame. Something in Rebecca's composure cracked slightly at these words, so similar to what Cole had told her, yet powerful. Coming from a woman who had known her before the fire, who had loved her mother. Cole said something similar, she admitted, though it took me time to believe him. He sounds like a wise man, Eleanor smiled, and one who sees clearly what matters. He saw me, Rebecca said simply, when everyone else saw only scars, or a veiled mystery. Cole saw who I was beneath it all. Then he's precisely the husband your mother would have wished for you, Eleanor said softly. Catherine never cared about social position or wealth. She only wanted her children to be seen and valued for who they truly were. This connection to her mother, this validation of her choices, affected Rebecca deeply. She blinked rapidly against unexpected tears. I wish I remembered her better. You're more like her than you know, Eleanor assured her. The same determination, the same quiet strength. She hesitated, then added, I have letters, photographs, memories I'd be happy to share if you'd like. Rebecca nodded, unable to speak for a moment. When she regained her composure, she asked, why didn't you come after my parents died, when I went to live with Uncle Edmund? Eleanor's expression clouded. I tried. Edmund refused my request to visit, to correspond, said it would only confuse. You remind you of your loss. Her hands twisted in her lap. I should have tried harder, found another way. That failure has haunted me. You're here now, Rebecca said after a moment's consideration. Perhaps that's what matters. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Cole and Judge Harmon, who had concluded their discussion of the trial arrangements. Everything all right? Cole asked, noticing Rebecca's emotional state with the sensitivity that had become second nature between them. Yes, she assured him with a genuine smile. Better than all right. They rejoined their guests for a tour of the ranch operations, with Cole explaining the irrigation innovations Rebecca had designed. Judge Harmon showed genuine interest in the technical aspects, while Eleanor noticed how the ranch hands deferred to Rebecca with respect rather than curiosity about her scars. Your people seem devoted, she observed as they watched Jake demonstrate the new water flow controls at the main channel. They're good men, Cole agreed, loyal to the Diamondback and to Rebecca. She inspires loyalty, Eleanor said thoughtfully, Catherine had that same quality. As the afternoon waned, their visitors prepared to depart. They would spend the night in Pine Ridge before beginning the journey back to Denver the following morning. "We won't disrupt your lives here," Eleanor assured them as they stood in the yard, "but perhaps you might consider visiting occasionally. Even beyond the trial, our home is always open to you." Rebecca glanced at Cole, who nodded encouragingly. "We'd like that," she replied, "though the Diamondback keeps us busy most of the year." "Of course," Eleanor smiled. "A successful ranch requires constant attention. Your father would be proud to see you as a capable rancher's wife." "Partner," Cole corrected automatically. When all eyes turned to him, he elaborated, "Rebecca isn't just my wife, she's my partner in running the Diamondback. Her innovations with the irrigation system saved the ranch during the drought." Eleanor's smile deepened with genuine approval. Even better, Catherine's daughter would never be content as merely a wife. As they said their goodbyes, Judge Harmon took Cole aside one final time. "I've sent word ahead to the prosecutor about these developments. Blackwood will be transferred to Denver under heavy guard within the week." "Good," Cole said. "The sooner he's far from here, the better." "I agree, though I suggest maintaining your vigilance until he's securely in territorial custody." The judge's expression was grave. Men like Blackwood often have contingency plans. Cole nodded, appreciating the warning. "We'll stay alert." Meanwhile, Eleanor embraced Rebecca carefully. "I'll write to you with details about the accommodations in Denver," she promised. "And perhaps some stories about your mother that Edmund wouldn't have shared." "I'd like that," Rebecca said, returning the embrace with growing comfort. As their visitors rode away, Cole and Rebecca stood together on the porch, watching until the dust settled on the road. "Your aunt seems like a good woman," Cole observed. "Yes," Rebecca agreed thoughtfully. "Though it's strange to suddenly have family again after so long on my own." "Too much?" he asked, sensitive to her state of mind. She considered for a moment, then shook her head. "No. Unexpected, but not unwelcome." She turned to face him fully. "Like many things in my life, recently," Cole smiled, pulling her gently into his arms. "Any regrets about staying in one place, about the Diamondback?" "None," she said firmly. "This land, this life, it's everything I never knew I wanted." Her hand came up to touch his face. "And you're everything I never dared hope for, even though everyone thought I was marrying an ugly, veiled bride?" He teased gently. Rebecca laughed, the sound free and unrestrained. "Especially then, you married me sight unseen, for water rights and business, but you stayed with me, fought for me because of who I am. The strongest, most beautiful woman I've ever known," Cole said, his voice dropping to a tender register reserved only for her. "Scars and all." "The scars are part of me," she acknowledged, "but they don't define me anymore." "No," Cole agreed, bending to press his lips to hers. What defines you is your courage, your intelligence, your heart, everything I love about you." Their moment of privacy was interrupted by the arrival of young Billy riding hard from town. Cole tensed immediately, stepping forward as the ranch hand reined his lathered horse to a halt in the yard. "Mr. Trenton," Billy called, his face flushed with excitement rather than alarm. "News from Sheriff Lawson." "What is it?" Cole demanded, helping the boy dismount. Billy caught his breath. "Judge Blackwood tried to escape custody last night. Him and two of his men jumped the guards during the evening meal." Rebecca moved to Cole's side. "And?" A grin spread across Billy's face. "Sheriff shot him in the leg. Got all three of them locked up tight now with extra guards. Judge is headed to Denver tomorrow under territorial escort, 4 armed men and a prison wagon." Relief washed through Cole. "That's good news indeed. Any casualties?" "Deputy Wilson took a knock to the head, but Doc Hayes says he'll be fine." Billy's excitement bubbled over. "Sheriff said to tell you Blackwood was carrying this when they caught him." He handed Cole a folded piece of paper. Cole opened it, Rebecca reading over his shoulder. It was a crude map of the Diamondback, with the ranch house circled and what appeared to be approach routes marked. "He was planning something," Rebecca said quietly. "And failed," Cole reminded her, folding the map and tucking it away. "For the last time." Billy shifted from foot to foot. "There's more, sir. Sheriff says Clayton Forrester tried to withdraw all his personal funds from the bank yesterday. Margaret Wilson stopped him, said he needed to answer some questions about missing money first." The young ranch hand's grin widened. "He's under arrest too, for embezzlement." The news of Clayton's downfall spread quickly through the ranch. That evening, a spontaneous celebration erupted in the bunkhouse, with Jake breaking out his prized fiddle and Martha contributing extra pies and a barrel of her hard cider. Even Cole and Rebecca joined the festivities, dancing to the lively "Tunes Under the Stars" as lanterns illuminated the yard. "You're good at this," Cole remarked as he spun Rebecca in a particularly energetic reel. "Where did you learn to dance like this?" Her laugh was breathless and joyous. "My father taught me. Said a woman should know how to dance, regardless of whether anyone asked her to." Her eyes sparkled with memory and present happiness. "He'd be shocked to see me now, whirling around a ranch yard with a cowboy." "Shocked in a good way, I hope," Cole grinned, pulling her close as the music slowed. "The best way," she assured him, her arms coming naturally around his neck as they swayed to the gentler rhythm. "He always wanted me to find my own path, though I doubt he imagined it would lead here." Cole's hand settled at the small of her back. "Any regrets about where that path has taken you?" Rebecca looked around at the ranch hands and their families, at Martha directing the serving of food with cheerful authority, at the Diamondback stretching out around them, no longer parched and struggling, but rejuvenating under their joint care. "Not one," she said softly, meeting his gaze. "Every step, every choice, every hardship led me here, to the Diamondback." Her voice lowered to a whisper meant only for him. "To you." The kiss they shared was witnessed by the entire ranch community, eliciting good-natured cheers and a few knowing smiles from those who had watched their relationship evolve from business arrangement to something far deeper. Later that night, as the celebration wound down and the ranch settled into quiet, Cole and Rebecca stood on the porch of their home, watching the stars emerge one by one in the vast western sky. "Quite a day," Cole observed, his arm draped comfortably around her shoulders. "Quite a few months," Rebecca corrected with a smile. "When I stepped off that stagecoach, veiled and terrified, I never imagined this outcome." "What did you imagine?" She considered the question seriously. Safety, perhaps. A legal arrangement that would protect me from Blackwood. Access to enough money to eventually disappear again if needed. Her expression softened. "Not this. Not a true home. Not love." Cole turned to face her fully, his hands framing her face with reverent gentleness. "When Martha told me Clayton had arranged for me to marry a veiled stranger for water rights, I imagined many things too." His thumb traced the edge of her scarring. "But not finding the other half of myself in a woman brave enough to face down, corrupt judges and redo my entire irrigation system." Rebecca laughed softly, leaning into his touch. "We make quite the pair, don't we?" "The best kind," he agreed, bending to kiss her. "Partners in every way that matters." Inside the house, a lamp burned in the window, casting a warm glow across the porch. Once a symbol of Cole's solitary existence, it now welcomed them both. Home, to the life they were building together, to the future that stretched before them like the endless prairie, full of promise and possibility. "Ready to go in?" Cole asked after a long, comfortable silence. Rebecca nodded, her hand finding his as naturally as breathing. "Yes, home sounds perfect." As they crossed the threshold together, the stars continued their silent watch over the Diamondback. The ranch had weathered drought and danger, threats and hardship. Like its owners, it had emerged stronger, more resilient, more alive than before. And like the scars that Rebecca no longer felt compelled to hide, the challenges they had overcome had become not disfigurements, but character. Not weakness, but strength. Visible reminders of all they had survived together. The door closed behind them, but the light in the window continued to shine, a beacon in the darkness, guiding them home. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.